Hello, everyone, and inside today's Locked On Canadiens, the Habs snatch victory from the jaws of almost blowing it. World Juniors was a little bit wild, and there's more injury news, all that and more inside today's show.
You are Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 984 of Locked On Canadiens, your daily Montreal Canadiens podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Like I said, we are your daily Montreal Canadiens podcast, wherever you get your daily podcasts, Google, Apple, Spotify, wherever, or if you're watching on YouTube.com, because part of Locked On, you get your team every single day of the week. I am one of your hosts. I am Scott Matlin, and as always, I am joined by the active stick, Laura Saba, and we have a fantastic show ahead of us. The Canadiens made a 4-1 game, a little bit nerve-wracking. World Juniors was wild from start to finish today, and Josh Anderson's knee went kablooey, which is not great. We'll talk about that at the end of the show. But before I get into too much else, Laura, welcome back. I know you've been a little under the weather, and you're coming back for a show where I get to gloat about Canada being bad at something and the USA not. So it's a great day for me, personally.
It's a nice change for you, Scott.
Yeah.
Just once. Okay. I know we're going to talk a little bit about that in the next segment because I do have a couple of things to say. But honestly, I think we both felt it. Like, I texted you immediately after that first goal. What was it, like 30 seconds in? Something like that. It was so quick. And I was like, here we go again, and said something unprintable. And then Nick Suzuki kind of, got it together and scored. And honestly, I felt like these kinds of things happen when you're not a great team, is that like the possibility of blowing the lead happens, unless you are Toronto, in which case it's natural for you. And if you're a team like Montreal, like, to me, that showed like a little bit of lack of maturity, more than anything else. Like, I wasn't too concerned about it because, like, I was just half expecting we'd have to go into overtime. The game was already like a slightly late start, or a later start than we're used to. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to stop watching this game and I'm going to get ready to start recording because that's how much faith I have in the Habs. And guess what? They didn't let me down. They almost let me down, and then they didn't.
Yeah, Jamie Benn scored 11 seconds into this game because both Samuel Montembeault and Mike Matheson didn't know what to do with a dump in off the opening faceoff. Ends up going to, Wyatt Johnston. Johnston passes to Jamie Benn, who's wide open to the side of the net because Mike Matheson had one of those games where it goes, you don't know what you're going to get. Ian Boisvert, the build, called it the circus Habs, and he was right. They came back. Juraj Slafkovsky looked great in this game, and we'll touch on him a little bit later in this segment, but sets up Nick Suzuki on a really nice cross-zone feed there. Suzuki scores. Caden Gooley gets a absolute boomer off a rebound from Jonathan Kovacevic. Jordan Harris kind of goes solo in the second period, scores one, and then a power play goal. A tic-tac-toe power play goal.
A real power play goal.
By Cole Caulfield on his birthday. It's a pretty good, they were flying at that point. And the thing is, like, they sat back on their 2-goal lead, and I'm like, don't do this. They scored a fourth one on the power play after they had another power play before that where Josh Anderson's face got destroyed by a high stick. And I thought they're going to blow it again because they always sit back on these 2-goal leads. Dallas pulled their goalie with 6 minutes left. The game ended 4-3 because the Canadiens couldn't finish this game off. Almost couldn't finish this game off. I should be fair. They did close it out. They did win the game. And it's because Samuel Montembeault tonight was first, second, and third star. I know Slafkovsky is great. I know Nick Suzuki had a multi-point night. I know Cole Caulfield scored. I know Harris had a goal and assist. Samuel Montembeault, despite the gaff 11 seconds into this game,
he was the star of the Stars game.
Yes, he is absolutely the star of the Stars game. He was phenomenal in this. in that I'm looking, I don't actually see the 3 stars in here unless they've posted them somewhere else on ESPN. But the biggest thing is that this was a game where Samuel Montembeault on tips and redirects and chances around the net, lights out. He was absolutely dialed in, focused.
You were
He
seeing
played,
everything.
yeah, and even the stuff that he didn't, he was getting pushed out into dangerous areas or covering it up. He was composed, and I think after the Florida game where he was a little bit frustrated, I think that nothing happening in front of him, nothing he can do. He was dialed in this game. And I know 3 goals against, blah, blah, blah. I thought, he put up a 909 on the night, and I don't think that tells the whole story. I think without Samuel Montembeault, this is a blowout. If that's
Right.
Kate Primo or Jake Allen, this is a Dallas Stars game where they might win 6-3, 7-3 with how many chances they had. It's obviously Montembeault's net. It's going to be his net. It's a well-deserved win for Sammy in the new year.
I do think so. And the thing is, like, I do want to point out, though, that the Dallas Stars are a great team, right? They're really good. And it's exactly like what happened in, like, I thought it was 30 seconds in, it was 11 seconds in. I guess I have no concept of time. But that goal, like, they just capitalized. They saw like an opportunity, and they turned a small opportunity or small gaffe into a huge one, right? Like, they were able to kind of do that a lot, but also they're a much better team than the Montreal Canadiens. I don't think it's unfair to say that. I thought the Canadiens like had so many great moments, and I really want to talk a little bit. I know we have a little bit of time left before we have to move on to the next segment. I want to talk a little bit about Kaden Guhle because he scored, and I feel like he doesn't get the flashy moments. Like, we have been praising his play as of late, and he has been doing all the right things, but to see him like score goals, to see him have those moments, even if it's a big assist, to me, like, it shows that he's not just a one-trick pony. He's able to do things, and I was so happy for him on that goal. Like, and you know how much I love Jordan Harris, and I was happier for Guhle than I was for Jordan Harris, right? And I just wanted to spend a little bit of time on just like how great that was.
He continues to be like the steadying presence there. And they got him away from Justin Barron a little bit tonight because they went with 7 defensemen with 11 forwards with Christian Dvorak still out. And alongside Jonathan Kovacevic, I thought he played pretty well. Matheson was a bit of a mixed bag, and Justin Barron was, despite being a low event player tonight, they're only, oh, wow. I will save this when we talk about Slafkovsky next, but the defense had some shifts where they couldn't get the puck out, and Guhle was doing, I think, a good job at sealing areas, covering space. Jordan Harris very well in that. It was an uncharacteristically quiet night for Jaden Struble. I didn't notice David Savard at all, and I think that's usually a good thing, but when you have an 18.52% Corsi for and an expected goals of, let me see what David Savard's ended up being, 12.8, you're not having, sorry, that's the right one. Yoel Armia had an 8.01 goals against, or goal expected goals for, not the point. The defense itself kind of struggled at bits there, and I didn't worry about Kaden Guhle in this game, and I didn't worry about the Canadiens' top line either. The only 3 players on this team with a positive Corsi for percentage at 5-on-5, and the only 3 who finished with a positive expected goals for percentage, led by Juraj Slafkovsky at a 77% expected goals for percentage when he was on the ice on that top line. He gets an assist. He should have gotten, if there were third assists, the one that ended up being Caulfield's power play goal was started by him. He was everywhere tonight in a good way. That top line continues to just grind out scoring chances and opportunities. And I said it on Twitter, is that the minute on the power play that he finds his wheelhouse for that cross ice one-timer, the goals are going to start coming in because he hammers it, but he hasn't figured out where on the stick he's putting that yet. And as soon as he gets that dialed in, which he should have been arguably doing last year on the power play over other players like, Mike Hoffman, etc., I think we're looking at a completely different player afterwards.
I agree, and I just honestly like I've run out of words on how to praise him and how I feel like reassured by the season that he's having.
Leaf fans are like, oh, he didn't get an assist, but oh, look at, he made a nice pass, but there's no points. There's nothing on this.
Like, go away, Leafs fans.
I was almost going to say something unkind about Fraser Minton, but I'll save that for the next segment. I look at this team and I go, he's making progress. He's earning more points in these games, and he's involved in the play. The coaching staff now trusts him. He's out there trying to kill off the empty net there. He's out there in crucial situations. He's power play one for life right now. He is locked in that spot because the opportunities are there. He's aggressive. He's using his body. He's doing all the things that we wanted from him last year where he looked timid. Last year, maybe the AHL would have been good for him. This year, as soon as they put him with that top line, he had that game in Vancouver where I think something in there just clicked in his brain, and it's been all over since that. Speaking of Slovakians turning it on, the World Juniors were wild. We have a prospect update. We're going to talk about what went wrong for some of the eliminated teams and more, and that's all coming up in our next segment. But first, today's show is brought to you by the folks at FanDuel Sportsbook. The NFL regular season is wrapping up this weekend. I'm going to be stress watching the Bills and Packers back-to-back on Sunday, winning in the playoffs. But there's still plenty of time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. And the app's so easy to use, you can get paid out when you win instantly. You can bet on live same game parlays. You can find bets in their Explore tab if you're looking for something new. You can make a parlay in the Parlay Hub to find the most popular parlays that people are playing on FanDuel right now, and so much more. All you got to do is visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a layup with FanDuel, the official sports partner of the NFL and us here at Locked On. We are back here at Locked On Canadiens, and if you get up early to watch World Juniors because they are in Sweden, one, bless you. I can't do it anymore because I stay up too late editing podcasts and yelling at people on the internet. It was a wild day from the first game to the last game at World Juniors. And before we get into the biggest losers and stuff of the day, quick rundown. Slovakia gives up a game, breaking goal late in the third period to the Finns. It is 2-1 going into the final seconds of the third period. Filip Mesar, Habs prospect, after setting up a last-minute first period goal, scores one to force overtime with less than a minute left on the clock. They go to overtime, lose inside of a minute. Finland advances to the next round. Filip Mesar ends the tournament with 9 points in 5 games. Somehow was not on the best or the team of the tournament for Slovakia. He was not one of the 3 players, which is wild. Talk about that in a second. Canada trips over its own 2 feet, goes down 2-0, ties the game, loses off of the dumbest possible own goal with 11 seconds left. Many LOLs were had. More on that in a minute. Team USA takes care of Latvia without much issue. 7-2 advances to the medal round. Jacob Fowler gets another win. And Sweden nearly blows it to Switzerland. In that Sweden went up and Switzerland cut it to 2-1. And then Switzerland made it 2-2. And then Sweden got the benefit of a very dubious penalty at the end of regulation, goes into overtime and wins it. Sweden eliminates Switzerland from the medal round, meaning the U.S. will play Finland and Sweden will play Czechia in the semifinals to decide who's going to first, second, third, fourth place games, etc. I guess I'm going to just start with the Switzerland game. I'm actually heartbroken for them because they played so hard, and Mike Johnson on the broadcast lost his mind, in which they asked him, what penalty would you call there? And he just yells out loud, "It's a nothing. It's not a penalty." In which I watched the replay and went, they called it a 5-minute spearing major, reviewed it, and gave him 2 for slashing, when everyone's looking at this and going, there's not a penalty there. The officiating in this tournament, I talked about it in 3 Up, 3 Down yesterday. Bad, just bad. And they're usually pretty good on that. Not much to say on the US's win. They beat Latvia as expected. I'm heartbroken for Filip Mesar to not get another round there. Slovakia looked so good. And 9 points in 5 games. I hope people stop writing off that Habs prospect there. Should have been on the team of the tournament, but was not. And now we get to do the fun part where I get to make fun of Canada on a Montreal Canadiens podcast. So
wait, I just want to say real quick, though, wasn't Sweden the favorite to win all along, though?
No, the U.S. came into this tournament as the favorites.
I swear to you, I thought Sweden was. Oh, you know what? Oh, I know whose rankings I was following, and they have some bias. All right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So one, they're hosting. Sweden's always good, is the thing. Sweden always puts together a solid team. Even their bad teams are still pretty good, just like the Finns. But the Americans came in favored because that big U.S. national team development program class, Smith and Perreault and Leonard, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The biggest news of the day was Canada came out in a game against Czechia, a team that they should be able to beat, but have the ability
Even
to
though it was a good team.
Yes, Czechia is a very good team. They are a dangerous team. Yuri Kulik is a nightmare to play against. Ask anyone, me, who's watched him play the Rocket for 2 seasons now. A nightmare of a team. They can be frustrating. They're sneaky good. And Canada came into this game and did not have it in gear. And they went down 2-0 and looked terrible. They were not far off from being down more than 2 goals in the first period. And they did battle back. They absolutely battled back. They made it a 2-2 game. It looked like they were going to push Czechia to the limit, get this to overtime. And with 11 seconds left, shot just from the point, goes off Oliver Bonk's knee and into the net. Canada is eliminated with 11 seconds left. And there are 2 things I want to talk about on this, the game being second. Everyone who bullied Oliver Bonk into privatizing all of his social media because a puck he had no control over hit him in the kneecap, you should go take a long walk off a short pier and reassess everything you were doing with your life. You're bullying a teenager for something that is not even close to his fault. And even if something was his fault, you are bullying
even
a
if he
teenager.
made a mistake that caused that own goal, you still can't bully him.
Yeah, they're kids. Like, here's the thing is, I've made fun of some of Team Canada's selections in this, and I poked fun at, they named a Leafs prospect captain, they lost. I'm not going to this person's personal Instagram and bullying them.
Right.
It's gross, and it happens every year, and I hate it because we always have this conversation, and no one gets any better at it. Going to the game itself, Team Canada losing this game is better for the long-term longevity of this program, I think. Or should be if they take the right lessons from this.
This is the problem, though, Scott.
They won't.
Will they?
No, they won't, because they put bless Lauren Kelly, who covers all these prospects in depth, losing her mind this entire tournament because Team Canada, with the biggest pool of prospects to draw from, still picked the worst, not the worst possible options, but made a flawed lineup that cost them when it shouldn't have in this tournament.
And this is the thing, like, not just that. It's if only it stopped at that. The decision that they made was, this is a tournament of the best young players, literally all the best players who their NHL teams let them go, right? Or who are undrafted, right? And it's the best, the most skilled, the top of the top. And what are you doing sending a bunch of character players to a short tournament? They play the game the right way. Well, can they score? Are they offensively gifted? Are they more talented than the people that you are leaving behind? No. So why are you doing this? And this is the thing, like, everybody who's actually in the know, including scouts who are based in Canada, from Canada, anybody who's actually in the know did not have Canada ranked higher than 4th. The highest I saw them ranked before going into the tournament, or like rated, was 4th. All the people that were rating them in the medals were people who don't actually follow like these players for a living, right? They're more like NHL or whatever. So looking at this, and all these people already know heading into it, it's going to be a disaster. And then just allowing this to play out. And not only that, after this, do you think Canada is going to learn anything? No, next year they're going to send a bunch of character players again. Characters, fine, but not over skill.
And here's the thing with it is, guys like Easton Cowan can play an important role. And yes, Owen Beck is not a high offensive grinding player, but Owen Beck does one thing very well. He wins faceoffs when it counts and plays those defensive minutes.
I thought he had a great tournament. I didn't think that
he didn't get the opportunities that other players did. He's the only returning player, which is wild to me. They didn't name him captain despite being the only returning player on this team. That's not what I'm most upset about. But I look at this and I go, Fraser Minton was given the captaincy and given top 6 minutes and did nothing with it. Macklin Celebrini was great. He can't do it all on his own. The defense didn't have the activation. They left a guy like Owen Pickering at home. Carson Rakoff, who is the OHL's leading scorer, a power play weapon, not in his usual position on the power play, 13th forward. Jagger Firkus, who leads the WHL and scores a ton of points, 13th forward. You're giving chances to players who aren't performing. Some of the early losses in this tournament in close games should have been the wake-up call, and
They
it
should have
didn't
been a
happen.
clue. And this is the thing, like, I just want to like really quickly visit when I say skill over character. I mean, character, the way that like on ice, what we're talking about is like, oh, they play the game. Like they're not a skilled, like showy, flashy player. I don't mean like if you're like a bad person, like I don't want you on my team. Like character, I meant on ice, not off the ice.
It's just one of those frustrating things that it's like, I'm rooting against Canada in these tournaments because come on, I am who I am.
And usually he loses. I'm
Yeah,
just gonna
usually I
point that
lose
out.
for the most part. Every now and then we win and it's great. And I get to rub it in for at least until World Championships or the Women's Worlds, etc. But besides, the point is Canada has so much to pick from. And so often they get by on picking a flawed team because the top end of it is higher than anything else. This year, Macklin Celebrini was great. Do not get me wrong, but could not Connor Bedard them, could not McDavid them, could not, etc., etc.
He's not
Lafreniere,
that
whatever.
guy.
He's very good. This is not me slandering him, but he wasn't able to haul them to that same result because the rest of the team is too flawed. And now Canada's going to look at this and be like, we got to get tougher there. We're letting in goals like, no, you do not. You don't have to
don't
do
galaxy brain it.
that. And if they want to, great. But you're a team that should be looking at, we've picked flawed teams for other things and gotten by just the fact that the sheer talent at the top end is better than anyone else. Learn from this lesson or you will be doomed to repeat it again. The U.S. program left guys like Hunter Bruskevich at home, Cole Eiserman at home, still found a way to compete all the way down there because their skill is throughout the lineup there. We'll see what happens next. It should be a learning moment. Whether Team Canada learns anything from it or not remains to be seen. But we'll find that out next year when selection camp starts. But we got to go back to the NHL. We have more injury news. Someone's knee went kablooey, and it was gross and bad, and I'm hoping it's not as bad as it looked. We'll get into that coming up next. But first, before we dive into that, today's show is also brought to you by the folks at Game Time. The holiday seasons are over. The NFL playoffs are right around the corner. The NHL is in full swing. The NBA is in full swing. Shows, concerts, whatever you're looking for. We know how stressful it can be trying to buy tickets for these events, and you stress out about what is my seat going to look like? What hidden fees are involved in buying tickets for this? Well, guess what? With Game Time, you can take all the guesswork out of it. You shouldn't have to worry about where to buy your tickets for that because you can get killer last minute deals, all in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee at Game Time. They take all the guesswork out of buying tickets, and that all in prices means the price you see on your seats is the price you pay. No more hidden fees driving up that price. So if you want to go see a new concert in your town, go see a show on Broadway, you want to go see your favorite hockey team play, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Just download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Some terms may apply, but again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. All you gotta do is download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. We are back to round out the show tonight. And when we were structuring the show, we're like, what are we going to talk about in the third segment here today? You know, there's a lot going on. We will touch on the PWHL launch tomorrow in our episode because there was a great weekend of women's hockey, the launch of the Professional Women's Hockey League in the U.S. and Canada. Can't wait to talk about that. But as the Stars game was going on, two things were noticeable to me. Christian Dvorak missed a second game with an injury. And perhaps more seriously, Josh Anderson took a puck off the knee, took a stick to the face and got his nose split open, and then was tied up with Matt Duchene going for a 50-50 puck in the neutral zone, kind of lost his balance, and it looks like his knee buckled, needed help to the bench, and needed a lot of assistance getting to the locker room with absolutely no pressure being put on his leg. And all I can say is, are we doing this again? The Canadiens are already down to 11 forwards on this road trip. Before going into this game, are now down to 10. I don't know what Anderson's injury is yet. I haven't seen an update come across Twitter or anything yet.
It hasn't. I just checked.
It's it's not great in that regard. And I feel bad. We've railed Josh Anderson a lot this season.
But he was getting it together the last little while. Like, we were singing his praises. He was truly righting the ship. This is such
Don't
bad
look
luck
at
for him.
don't look at the stats from tonight. His line was, and this is not the point of that. Is that Laura's correct that he had 5 goals in like his previous 5 games going into the game against Tampa. There, he was playing well in terms of the goal scoring. The underlying metrics are hot garbage, but we knew that. But it's someone who is getting it together, looking more involved, and seemingly finding his stride. And then I'm hoping it's a stinger, non-precautionary thing, a strain or a sprain, because if it's anything torn, that's basically the season at this point. There's 3.5 months of Canadiens hockey left. Anything torn is going to be 6 to 8 weeks at minimum. That's basically the end of the year there. And it's not like it was a gross play where he got hurt or anything like. It's just he got caught in a weird spot. His skate collided, caught a rut, whatever it was, and his knee buckled. And so my question now becomes, what do the Canadiens do here? They're lacking depth at the NHL level now because you have Harvey Pinard still out, Newhook's out, Doc's out for the year, Anderson's injury is unknown, Dvorak's out, Armia looks terrible. They have to go into the AHL again. And my first thought is Emil Heineman will be probably called back up from Laval. And the question now becomes then, what else do you do? Do you wait for Dvorak to get healthy and you run 11-7 again with Kovacevic or Lindstrom or whomever? Or do you call up 2 forwards? And I know people are going to go, Joshua Waugh. We want Joshua Waugh. We want Joshua Waugh. My thought is there are 3 real options I could see in that spot. One of them is Waugh. One of them is Sean Farrell. And one of them is upgrading Brandon Giniak's AHL contract to an NHL contract and putting the speedy center on the 4th line for the Rocket or for the Canadiens. The issue is with turning it into an NHL contract, he is then subject to waivers going down there. And if it's a temporary thing and you risk losing your best scoring forward on the Rocket right now.
Right, exactly.
It's a frustrating period. Like they won, but at what cost kind of thing again. It's a maddening thing here, and it's not the team's fault, but the Rocket just got healthy, put together some wins, and then they're going to start getting picked apart again, which is the life of an AHL team, but it's frustrating in a rebuilding year when you want your young stars down there to kind of hit their next level.
So let me ask you a question. If you had to say the one person, you can't say anybody. You can't say multiple people. The one person who deserves the call up the most versus the one that makes the most sense for the Canadiens, are they 2 different people?
Yes. It legitimately, Brandon Giniak deserves the call up the most. And I realize that, yes, he needs an NHL contract, but he has led the team in scoring this year. He's usually a winger who is now playing first line center minutes because Mitchell Stevens is with the Canadiens right now, just below a point per game. And it's frustrating. And I do think they're just going to call up Heineman because he offers a little bit of that physical edge, heavy shooting touch that they want. And I'm okay with that. I think Heineman's played well in Laval. I think he's going to can slide right in the NHL. The Canadiens play a couple more games this week. I haven't fully looked at what their
the
schedule
Sabres
looks like.
on
Thursday,
and then
the Rangers on
Saturday.
And then they have 4 days off.
And then they play Philly on Wednesday.
So they have 2 games at home at the Bell Center against the Sabres and the Rangers there. Easy enough to call someone up, send them back down if there are games, because I believe the Rocket are at home this upcoming weekend as well. I can just double check that real quick too. Let's see here. It is January now. My God. They are on the road Friday and Saturday in Utica and then head back to my God, this website's terrible. Then they head back Friday, Sunday. So they will have a player available Saturday. And then they head back for a 4-game homestand at home at Place Bell starting January 10th. I'm wondering if they finally pull the trigger on some kind of move in here. You have time, you have needs, and if you don't want to disrupt your AHL development, you have to make a move here. It seems like Toronto needs a goalie. Colorado needs a goalie. The Oilers probably need a goalie. lots of teams need a goalie right now that expected to be better than they are. Well, Toronto's still good, annoyingly, but it's all coming to a head, and that bubble is going to burst at some point. I'm wondering in there if they go goalie, we need an NHL bottom six forward, winger, center preferred at that point, and Kent Hughes makes something happen. Even if he has to give up another pick with that to make something happen, I wouldn't be shocked if that's too far off, just because something's got to give here. You can't carry 3 goalies when you're down 2 forwards plus the ones who are already injured this year.
Yeah, and honestly, like, I just don't want them to call anyone up because they'll get injured. And
yeah, there's also that. I would prefer that no one else get injured this year. Like I said, the Rocket are just starting to play well, starting to really get things in gear there. And I don't want to disrupt what's been a really good development period the last month or so for them. But sometimes that's fact of life on that. And that's not on Jean-Francois Houle. That's not on the coaching staff. That's just sometimes how it goes. We are going to wrap up the show, though. I know we're a couple days ahead of that, but please send us your mailbag questions at LO_Canadiens, LockedOnCanadiens@gmail.com, because we do record the Thursday night for that after the Habs Sabres game. We'll recap. We'll do that. Tomorrow we're going to talk PWHL and a couple of other things that are out and about in the world of hockey. Maybe we'll get more news on anything else. In the meantime, you can follow Laura at The Active Stick on Twitter. You can follow me at Scott Matla on Twitter. You can find this show wherever you get your daily podcast on Google, Apple, Spotify, or if you are watching us on YouTube, thank you so much. We are hoping maybe we'll hit 4,000 subscribers this year. We're closing in on our 1,000th episode. So much is coming up. But until then, we will see you all next time.